Yes. Good evening, everybody. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Welcome to Prowess Learning and Consulting. I am Major General Sanjay Soi. I retired on 30th September 2018, and since then, I am busy just giving back to society, whatever way I can do that. Today, we are going to discuss some real time experiences of serving in Saichen, Sri Lanka, and Somalia from die-hard soldier and my friend, course mate, Colonel Arun Parasar. He is from Kumaon Regiment. I am also from Kumaon and Naga Regiment. And he has settled in Ranchi after retirement. With me, as my co-host, is Mrs. Stute Sinha. She is also from Ranchi, studied in Delhi University, and is die-hard army fan. She has spent many years in National Cadet Corps, worked as RJ in Ranchi for number of FM stations and news channels. After marriage, she has moved to Patna. She has very hectic schedule and I'm happy that she has agreed to co-host. The three reasons. One, subject is related to army. Two, the writer, Colonel Arun Parasar is from Ranchi, her मायका मायके वालों के साथ तो जुड़ना ही पड़ेगा. And third, she is like my daughter to me. Honestly, she had no choice. And I hope so they have not missed out anything. Over to you now.
Thank you so much, General Soy, and Namaskar. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you all from Pros Learning and Consulting. Actually, you haven't missed anything, but I'm really glad to be here, and I would give my thanks to Sakshi Soy to giving me this great opportunity to be here and to work for you, sir. It's always my great pleasure. And today we are here with a very special book. कहते हैं कि यह महज एक किताब नहीं, ये सपनों के वो पंख हैं जो हर युवा देखता है और सीखने के लिए उसके पास एक एक पन्ने जुड़ गए हैं ताकि वो आर्मी ज्वाइन कर सके. यह महज एक किताब नहीं, एक आगाज है युवाओं के सुनहरे भविष्य का. यह किताब नहीं, अंदाज है सेना के हर उस ऑफिसर के जिन्होंने ऑलिव में रहकर अपने विभिन्न एक्सपीरियंसेस के साथ आगे बढ़े और अपने देश की सेवा की है. जी हाँ, मैं बात कर रही हूँ उस किताब की जिसका नाम है द 3S फैक्टर्स, जिसे लिखा है कर्नल अरुण पराशर ने. अपने देश को और कुमाऊं रेजिमेंट को अपने जिंदगी की लगभग 31 साल देने के बाद उन्होंने रिटायरमेंट के बाद रांची में रहने का फैसला किया, जो झारखंड की राजधानी है, और अब सोशल वर्किंग कर रहे हैं और सोसाइटी को अपनी तरफ से सेवा दे रहे हैं. सर, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका हमारे शो पर.
Thank you, Jan Soi. Thank you, Shruti. And namaskar to all the viewers. It's my pleasure to be on this show and share my experiences and whatever I have learned till now, both in army and in social life.
थैंक यू सो मच सर. एक्चुअली जब भी हम किसी भी ऑफिसर से मिलते हैं, आर्मी के ऑफिसर से, सेना के अधिकारी से मिलते हैं, तो पहला क्वेश्चन हर युवा के मन में वही होता है कि वो पहली कौन सी चीज थी, व्हाट एग्जैक्टली ट्रिगर्ड यू and you decided to join army, sir?
Right from my early days, I had a fascination for uniform. I had a passion for uniform, and this led me to join Bharat Scout and Guide and NCC in my school and college days. And thereafter, I think police service was generally the focus, and I cleared both police service and army. But ultimately, I decided to go for Indian Army.
Wow. Sir, now you are into social service. रांची में हैं आप and society के लिए अपना योगदान दे रहे हैं. So can you give a light on this social service, sir?
अपनी जिंदगी के बेशकीमती 33 साल भारतीय सेना के साथ देश को अपनी सेवा प्रदान करने के बाद जब मैं रिटायर किया तो मैंने कहा कि भाई अब समय आ गया है कि मैं अपने समाज को भी कुछ वापस करूं. और मेरे ख्याल में it is my personal view that literacy and health, these are the two sectors in our country. If these two sectors are taken care of and handled practically, I am sure India as a nation will rise globally, both in economic and intellectual field. Towards that end, I thought to form and register a NGO, which is called Birsa Munda Scout and Guide, with Government of Jharkhand about 3 years back. The mission of my NGO was in the field of education. And we worked for last 3 years. We have been working and getting a very positive response from the people of Jharkhand. Presently, we are working in the district of Dhanbad, which is the cold hub of Jharkhand, and where a lot of literacy is there, poverty is there. And we thought that we must focus in these areas first. Now, recently, 3 months back, when COVID-19, it started spreading its wing and reached Jharkhand also. So we, as a team, anticipated that since it is a pandemic, it is likely to affect the poor the most. Hence, we started working on that, and we prepared our team and started chalking out as to which all are the areas where we can put our effort and be of some use to the people. To start with, we started with cooked food distribution, which was well received. Then packed food, dry ration. Then we went on to getting the mask stitched by the ladies of the area and then distributed among the people. And recently, we said that awareness is one thing which is required to be brought into the society. So we started Nukkad Nataks. All these efforts by the NGO has been applauded by the public and the government, and I'm happy that it has been a step in the right direction.
In fact, Arun, I'm so happy. A soldier is always a soldier. In fact,
that's right.
After retirement, it is something like you are again on as a frontline soldier in the COVID-19 pandemic. You are going out of the way. When the people are trying to hide themselves inside the house, you're going out, helping out people, the people who need it. And hats off to you, Arun. In fact, you have proved that a soldier always fights from the front. And I'm really grateful to you that you shared your thoughts, and I'm sure others will take some motivation from this. And now, in fact, coming back to your book, Siachen, Sri Lanka, and Somalia are the 3 S's you covered in your book. The 3 S factors. In fact, if you look at it, if we, as a soldier, I also look at it, these 3 areas are totally different terrain, different type of operations, different challenges, different conditions where you have operated. But then this is what army is. We operate from -50 in Sachin to +50. We operate in high altitude, mountains, deserts, plains, jungles, and different type of operations: attack, defense, patrolling, ambush, or against enemy, against terrorist. And when the nation needs, we come for the humanitarian aid also to help the humanity with the humanitarian touch, with the touch for the humanity. And that is what probably you have shown, that this book covers that. I've read this book couple of times. In fact, for the benefit of viewers, I would say that it was my privilege that I have written the foreword of the book. In fact, this book is with me, and it was a matter of honor that I was written the foreword for my course mate. But I was actually quite surprised. We in infantry do not believe in writing. ना थोड़ा लिखने में हमारा हाथ तंग होता है, कहते चला लो जितना मत, हमारा थोड़ा पेट्रोलिंग एक बार करके पेट्रोल रिपोर्ट मत लिखाओ, दोबारा पेट्रोलिंग कर लेंगे हम. तो वो थोड़ा इशू है. But I mean, you wrote the book. So what was the trigger? I wanted to know for you to write this book. What was the trigger?
It was primarily the inspiration from my brothers in arms, as also my friends who have known me for quite some time and were well aware about my professional credentials. And once I retired, they said that why don't you put these things in writing, as these things will become a history in times to come and will also be considered as a reference book and will benefit the coming generation. They will get motivated and will certainly help the youth of today. And basically that was the trigger, that was the inspiration. And since everything was, since I had gone through the whole thing, so it did not take much time to, getting my thoughts together and putting it in writing.
In fact, yeah, I've read the book. It is very well written in a very simple language. It is good even for Fauji's as well as civilian. Everybody will enjoy. My wife also read it, and she could also understand the nuances what you have explained there. In fact, now coming to the first S, Siachen. You see, the glaciated area of Siachen covers 1,000 square miles of snow-covered mountains along the border of India and Pakistan. The conflict started as early as in 1949 because the boundary was not demarcated. The area remained unresolved even after 1971, when we had a good opportunity after Shimla Accord. A number of units have served there in highest battlefield of the world. Kanarun, I'll request you, so if you could share something memorable from your Siachen tenure, because a lot of people are keen to know. People are very keen to know something memorable. I mean, in short.
General, in so far Siachen is concerned, or a glacier is concerned, the vagaries of that sort of a terrain can only be understood by persons who have served there. A lot of things are being written about glacier, about Siachen, about Operation Meghdoot. But once you serve there, you really know where you are serving and for what purpose you are serving. As brought out by the general, it is a barren land, full, completely snow-capped on the Karakoram ranges in the northern tip of the country. And it is treacherous. Treacherous is a word which is, I don't think it will go well, because it is very difficult really to explain the living conditions, the food, the climate, the working condition. But being a soldier of the Indian Army, you try and adjust yourself to such environments and try to produce results which are expected out of you. Our battalion was one of the second battalions to be inducted into that sector. For the viewers, in 1984, actual Operation Meghdoot, which is known to be the Battle of Siachen Glacier, started in mid-April 1984. And our battalion was the second one to be inducted in December 1984. At that point of time, there were only two parts of glacier. One was the central glacier, in which one infantry battalion was deployed, and the second one was Subsector West, SSW, which after the Kargil War was named after Lieutenant Hanif as Hanif Sector. Our battalion was given the responsibility of Subsector West. I was the Delta Company commander and was holding a post called Durga. Durga had two sub-posts on both its flank. One was called Tiger and one was called Tyakshi. Now, as you are aware, in high altitude area, winters are severe, the line of communication is cut off. Hence, but then the troops have to be maintained. So what we generally do is we winter stock the post for about 4 to 5 months. And this exercise starts just as soon as the summer season starts for 3-4 months. That is the time. Yes, once the snow starts melting, we get into this job. So in it was April 1985 when this incident took place. So actually the incident was a human tragedy, which I am going to explain to you. We generally stop the post to last till mid-April of the next year. And accordingly, I had stopped both my posts. However, on 28th of March, 1985, I got a distress call from my taxi post, which had around 10 men on it. The post commander requested me for a few jerrycans of kerosene oil and few kilos of sugar. I thought that the ration that I have stocked there will last them till 15th of April. But somehow it did not happen, and the post commander had to forewarn me for this. Now, since I did not have, and the complete line of communication was blocked with the snow, so I did not have any other option but to ask my commanding officer for the help. The commanding officer also said that I don't have resources to help you at this juncture, so I will go back to the brigade commander and ask for a helicopter sortie. But somehow that request was turned down, saying that logistically SSW is priority 2. Now we did not have any option left. And the CO told me that now you have to take on this mission on foot. Knowing the terrain, knowing the danger involved in undertaking such mission, I decided that my boys are more important to me than any other thing at that point of time. I will not let them die of hunger. Hence, I prepared a team of 14 boys who were to carry jerrycans of kerosene oil and sugar on at the back, and cover that distance of around a kilometer from Durga Post, which this path about which I am referring to was at a gradient of 60 degrees slope on the mountain, which was completely capped with snow. And during winters, we never used to venture on this patch. But unfortunately, I had to take that decision. So on 28th of March 1985, early morning at 3 o'clock, I got these boys and boosted their morale and gave the marching order. It was barely 10 minutes that I heard a bang. I was in fact on my way to my bunker. As soon as this bang came, since it was dark, I got back to the place from where I had marched them off. There is always a sentry for such operation who blows whistle or gives any indication that some mishap has taken place. So the sentry was frantically whistling the whistle. As soon as I reached there, I was told that something has happened, some bang has taken place, and it is in the direction in which the boys have gone. For a minute, I was completely muted. But after some time, I regained myself and started going towards that side. I found that around 150 meters of the patch through which our boys were passing had come under a heavy avalanche. Now, out of these 14 boys, 5 boys who were leading the column and 3 boys who were at the back, they escaped the avalanche. The remaining 6, they got buried in the avalanche. Now, the boys who were with me, I asked them to see if anybody is alive around. So within half an hour, they were able to retrieve 2 of them who were badly injured, but were still breathing. So we gave them first aid and put them in a comfortable position. It was dark. I reported the matter to the CO, and within 2 hours, a rescue team arrived at my post. And we started the rescue operation. You will not believe, I took 29 days to retrieve 4 bodies. The first body was recovered on the 6th day. The second was on 14th day. And third body was recovered on 20th day. And the last body was recovered on 29th day. मैं आज तक इस दुर्घटना को भुला नहीं सका हूं, क्योंकि ये जानते हुए कि मैं अपने जवानों की जिंदगी को खतरे में डाल रहा हूं, मेरे को परिस्थितियों ने विवश किया कि मैं ये डिसीजन लूं, और मैंने ये डिसीजन लिया, और उसका जो नतीजा हुआ वो सारा आपको मैंने एक्सप्लेन किया है.
In fact, this is what brings out, I mean, in detail, the conditions in Siachen area, how tough the conditions are, and how risky the situation is. In fact, when this COVID-19 is going on, when the lockdown period is there, people are forced to stay at the home. And I have spoken to a number of groups. I have delivered talks, motivating them, and shared my experience. I have not served in Siachen, I have served in Daras. But I tell them that around mid-November onwards, anytime the routes get cut, then we are stocked till mid-May or end April, depending on the area. And then till then, 4 or 5 months, we used to eat tinned ration. We used to have the dried ration stock there, no fresh vegetables, and we used to pray that nobody should fall sick, because
Yes.
evacuation was the most difficult thing. And half the time the medicines and the would be referred to doctors. They would be talking to doctor on radio sets, because the lines would get cut, and doctor would prescribe them on radio set what should they take, what kind of medicine they must take. That's the kind of thing that potatoes used to freeze like walnuts. That's the kind of thing, the kind of temperatures which is the life is there. I mean, thank you so much. You have highlighted one of the facet of the thing, and I think during COVID-19, people may draw strength the conditions under which the armed forces serve, and this the condition where we are in lockdown period is very good. We have a TV set, we are getting fresh ration, groceries we are getting, we are, I mean, the lot of facilities. We have got the data, net, and today we are able to talk to each other on this thing. So anyway, thank you so much. This is, I think, I'm sure the viewers would got some idea, and your book also has highlighted many such incidents, which I'm sure that once the people read it, they will get to know more about it. And coming to the next S, there's a Sri Lanka. So, of Pavan, in fact, that is Indian peacekeeping operations in Sri Lanka, was considered a tough mission. You are fighting on a foreign land. I mean, how did you kept yourself motivated? How did you motivate your troops? I mean, during the operation in Sri Lanka, could you just share with us?
General Soy, as you brought out, Sri Lanka was one of the toughest missions I have operated in. I will say that there are three facets of IPKF operations in Sri Lanka. The first is peacekeeping. The second facet is peace enforcing. And the third facet is peacekeeping. So our battalion got an opportunity to get inducted into Op Pavan in the second phase, that is peace enforcing. It was on 24th of October 1987 when our battalion was airlifted from Lucknow and dropped at Kankesan Turai Airport in Jaffna. From there, we were asked to clear the access from Kankesan Turai to Jaffna, which was around 6 kilometers. The battalion started, and on 26th evening, the leading column got trapped into one of the LTTE ambush. Unfortunately, we lost 12 brave soldiers. Later, we retrieved their body in a very mutilated condition. Now, this particular incident, just on induction, changed my psychological balance. And I don't know, psychologically, I started thinking that till the time I take revenge of this particular incident, I am not going to sit idle. That was the basic motivation that I got, that because I had lost 12 boys, very precious to me. And in such conditions where you are the leader, they are looking up that Saab will take you through a correct route. We are not in danger. And there you find that your 12 boys are killed. As a commander, you cannot rest. And that particular motivation kept me going operations after operations. And in most of them, I was able to take a revenge. But my final revenge came towards the end of our tenure in Sri Lanka, where I was able to eliminate the area commander of my area in a swift raid operation. It has still kept on going till the time we got de-inducted from there.
In fact, I think you're done.
Yeah.
So basically, yes, Sri Lanka was very tough, and the kind of thing that we had to keep on evolving ourselves with the passage of time, and gradually with the new tactics being adopted by LTT and the kind of new directions every time in totally new area, new kind of surroundings. I mean, it was a very, very challenging task, and I'm so happy that you shared one of the incident and the many others in the book, which I think I'm sure the readers would love to read. Yeah, next I come to the third S, the Somalia. So India actually has a long and deep tradition of contributing troops for United Nations peacekeeping missions. So far, in fact, India has taken part in more than 49 missions and contributed more than 240,000 troops. India is one of the largest, in fact, I think it is the largest contributor of troops for the UN. So I think it was again a totally different thing. Sachin was different, Sri Lanka was different, and Somalia is different. So just could you share some experience of Somalia?
Somalia was a unique experience.
Yeah.
Serving with United Nations forces in itself is a great challenge, because there you are serving with multinational forces who have their own ethos, their own way of working, their own temperament. So you have to adapt yourself to the multinational environment. India got an opportunity to participate as a brigade in the UN mission after around 35 years. So it had to really prepare itself to be part of mission very minutely. And in that, besides the headquarters, were the battalions which were to accompany, the equipments that had to go, and so many small little logistic things. Personally for me, Somalia was unique in the sense that we were never taught about such operations that we carried out there. Yes, in insurgency areas, we have been carrying out operations to help out the civil population. But here we are going to deal with a major human tragedy. I think in our times, there cannot be a worse human tragedy than Somalia.
Yeah.
And this was all not because of power, but because of the social structure of that particular country. You will be surprised to know that that country is controlled and ruled by clans, which is a old-fashioned thing, but it is still going on in various parts of Africa. Now, once we entered Somalia, the devastation that we saw was beyond imagination. If any of you have gone through the articles during written during those times, you can find the young kids in those pathetic conditions, who did not have clothes, who did not have water to drink, who did not have any food to eat, who did not have any shelter to stay. And as a multinational force where we had everything, but had the mandate only for the humanitarian services. Now, it was a unique experience for me because I had to work with the international NGOs who are mostly involved in such humanitarian operations. And to adapt myself in such a situation was a big challenge. The Indian Brigade had a completely different and separate area of responsibility, and the Indian Brigade commander was given the liberty of organizing his area the way he felt. As Indians, we have passion. We know about the human tragedy. We know about the human beings, and we took that approach. And that approach was completely humanitarian. In that course, I was given the charge and was appointed as civil military liaison officer. That means I had the responsibility of looking after the military part of the whole mission, as also the humanitarian part that was to be played by the UN agencies. I felt that because of the strife, there was a scores of orphans in that area. Hence, an idea came that why not to establish an orphanage for these orphans. And since we have the support of the international NGOs and the UN, we can, bring them up till the time we are here. And in that process, I got an okay from the UN headquarters as well as the local clan leaders. And an orphanage was established, which was called Wonkai Orphanage in the area of Badoa in Somalia. I fixed up the routine for around 200 orphans who were staying there. We provided everything, right from their food, their bed, study material, to everything. And it was really it was heartening to see that the effort that we put in to bring them up to a required standard was achieved and applauded by all the country representatives, those who visited the Indian Brigade at that point of time. So that was very satisfying. And till now, I feel very, I take pride in that as a humanitarian gesture or a step towards that, if you are able to really rehabilitate the orphans, you have done a great job for the society.
In fact, time and again, Indian Army has proved its professionalism and also the humanitarian touch, the human touch in UN. In fact, wherever Indian Army has served in UN missions, they have left a good name for themselves. People still
That's
remember them. Yes, this was one army which was had a human touch, which had a very, very positive outlook in the whole thing. Yeah, Stuti, you wanted to say something? You wanted to ask something?
After listening every experience, all three S, I have the goosebumps in me. Oh my God, what was the experience you have gained, sir? Like 33 years, and I think 33,000 new experiences. So, what are the highlights you can say all of all these three S you have? You can give us the highlights, major highlights.
As you go along in your service, as unknowingly you get deployed in places about which you don't know, you try to extract some experience or the other.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the end of the day, if I collate it, then I will say that the basic training was provided to me by the academies of Indian Army. But the practical training as to what a soldier should be and what a soldier can be was achieved by me through these operations.
Yeah.
The highlights I will say was not limited to a particular zone. All the operations were in a different type of terrain, in a different type of environment, in a different type of mandate, in a uh, in a different type of your outlook.
Yeah.
Now, uh, in army we are basically meant to serve the country from external aggression, and if the time comes for internal aid to civil authority, we do that. But these missions were entirely beyond these things. So the dimension, you can say, which I can correlate, is cannot be taught. It has to be experienced. And that experience has given me that confidence that as a civilian member in the civil society today, I can foresee the requirements in the society, though we are very well off as a society. And by foreseeing a particular thing, you can always find out a solution for that. And that is really helping me out as on date.
So that is a desire to do something for the society, and then you are able to anticipate things. That the vision is that you have a thought, you have a vision, you have a desire to do something, and then automatically you'll find the ways and means to do and achieve those things. That's wonderful. In fact, we have been getting a lot of comments, a lot of good words, and a lot of appreciation. I mean, comments are coming one after the other, but some questions have also come in. So, one question was from Anshuman. He said that what is the present condition of Siachen? What's the present situation, and especially he asked in view of the COVID-19. Otherwise, present conditions in Siachen. Arun, are you there? I think we lost
I
him
think we
for a
lost.
second. But the fact is, Anshuman, I would like to bring out here is the conditions are much better, but the risk remains. The risks are same. There's no reduction in the risk factor as such. So they are continue to be same. That risk to life, yes. Uh, the living conditions have improved, the food part has improved, the clothing have improved, the transportation has improved, the methods of reaching their helicopter services have improved, number of more helipads are there, what it was there during his time. But the basic risk, the condition, the weather, you cannot fight the nature, that remains same. Yeah, second question which
Um,
came up. Let's see if he is able to join in. Yeah, Stuti, you wanted to say something?
so, like we just had talk about COVID-19. When it comes to this very killing pandemic, there are so many things we are going through nowadays. Like so many changes are there taking place within our houses and within our habits. So those aspirants who really wants to join army, and since we are talking here about army, so how you can guide, how you're going to guide those youth, those who are sitting at home, and nowadays when we're seeing that days are changing of their like NDA exam or CDS examinations, so how they can prepare and keep themselves motivated.
In fact, yes, with this problem is there probably with everybody. whether it is a 10th exam, 12th exam, or colleges, or schools, or competitive exam. So those who want to join army, they are as it is motivated lot. They have a passion in them, and army is not a career. Those who want to join army, it is a way of life. So
It's a
they
way
have
of life.
like around myself. I had joined bank earlier, but I wanted to join army, and fortunately, God has been kind that I joined army. I was able to join. I wanted to join infantry. I wanted to join Kumaon regiment. I got all that. So basically, but the fact is, they have to have a routine. There are a lot of online things available. They need to keep themselves fit. They must set a routine and continue with the preparation. That's what I can say. This COVID-19, like you have heard him, his experience of Siachen. I mean, all
Yes.
those conditions, the present condition is nothing. I mean, these are all external factors. If you have a willpower, if you have a motivated heart, then I mean, you can continue with the go as per the syllabus, Google it, and prepare it. There's no problem.
Hope we are.
So, yeah, I think he is trying to join in. Let me see. Yeah. In the meantime, there's a couple of other things were there. One question which had come from uh, Sanjeev Bangalore and Santosh, plus couple of other people. They wanted to know how to get the book. I think he'll tell, but otherwise it is available on Amazon. The book is available online, so you can always get it. Next was this question was there. Yeah, Sanjeev Bangalore. How what will the psychology of the people once they come down from Siachen? Yes, it has a lot of effect on your physical this thing, and you have a loneliness there for 3, 4, 5 months. But the training in army is such, the regimentation, the training, the way we live, the way we have trained, and we have prepared ourselves. We are mentally prepared, and before we go to Siachen, we do the in the base camp training, acclimatization, and all those things. It is done in a very, very scientific manner. Risks are there. People are prepared for that. But then after that, they're as it is, and then they're also they're fighting. They're ready to take on any attack, and they do the attack. They carry on attacks, do the patrolling, do the duties in -50 degree, -30 degree, -40 degree centigrade. When the snowfall is there, avalanches are there. So it doesn't change anything. In fact, he remains as motivated as he was before he went in. Yes, Stuti, I think the questions are over. You can thank him, and then he'll listen to the video later on, and we can close the session.
So for sure, and actually, every single sentence of his was so inspiring for every one of us. Like those who are listening to him, and to you also, sir. It's very inspiring, and thank you so much for joining us, Colonel Parashar and sir. You also, thank you so much for to those also who are listening to us. Thank you so much for participating. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Stuti, for being a co-host, and thank you so much, viewers. Your comments have really encouraged us, and I know the kind of feelings you all are sharing. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Good night.
Jai Bharat.
Stay home. Stay safe.